GDE, the Global Defense Effort, was an organization run by the leaders of Europe, America, and Japan, organized and controlled by Germany's central government body, St. Otto Ludwig Apocalypse, aka the Holy Blade. It was in control, managing defense, war, economics, everything. A military foundation with infinite resources. Its goal, the prevention of the quirk singularity and the protection of the people from other quirk users, and the technological advancement of humankind through any means necessary. Every hero who was employed by an agency with more than 5 employees needed to send extensive weekly reports to the GDE or risk getting shut down. However, the benefits of this were too juicy for anyone to complain. For one, a hero could be called to work for the GDE directly, which would lead to great financial gains. And great and free insurance. An insurance Bakugou Katsuki, a pro hero in Japan, enjoyed sadly only for a handful of years, before he had been forced into early retirement at the age of 36. Bakugou groaned as he awoke out of a restless dream. With a frown he walked through the small lodge him and Yu, his wife, had purchased while he was still making money. He hated this. Restless and annoyed, he walked through the narrow corridors in the dark. Retirement was hurting him mentally. Not only did his bitter rival Deku still enjoy his hero life, he had also been robbed of ever achieving the title of #1 hero. Due to a work injury that at least on paper declared him legally blind. Or, well, blind enough to be considered a liability for hero work. Luckily you, the light of his life, were not like other women your age. Before him you had never loved someone before, so had nothing to compare, nothing to strive for relationship-wise, and your standard was him, and only him. It was you who had the idea to sell your apartment in the center of Tokyo, to move into your vacation home permanently. After all, as an architect, you could work from home. Slowly, Bakugou crept into the kitchen. Grabbing powdered chocolate pudding. Not even his childhood hobby of cooking brought him joy these days. But it was something to do, wasn't it? As you heard him rummage through the kitchen, you awoke, rubbing your eyes, yawning, and then mumbling quiet curses to yourself, you got up. Quietly you walked into the kitchen. Bakugou, what on earth are you doing? Your husband was stirring the pot slow yet aggressively. Making chocolate pudding, he growled. You blinked, perplexed. It's 4 in the morning. He shrugged. Why on earth are you making pudding? He stopped for a second and then looked at you. Because I've lost control of my life. You furrowed your brows and sighed. I'll let you finish. Then we talk. You went into the living room, putting a bit of firewood into the fireplace, then used your incineration quirk to create a comfy little fire. Sitting down on your couch, you waited, arms crossed. 20 minutes later, Bakugou came in with the pot he used to make the pudding. It was still steaming hot. He remained in the living room, not saying anything for about 2 minutes. Go on. Put it in the fridge, you said. He blinked and then returned to the kitchen. After another 2 minutes, It was finally time to talk. He sat down on a chair and looked out the window. You combed through your hair. Well, you said. Don't you think you're a little too young for a midlife crisis? Bakugou muttered something, and you sighed. Bakugou, what's wrong? Oh no. You blinked. You don't know. Why did he force you to talk to him like a child? Why do you care? Again, you sighed. Because I'm your wife. He scratched the back of his head. Because you are clearly in turmoil. Plus, you haven't touched me in weeks. He blushed. By now I know you well enough. I know exactly what's wrong with you. Stop, he muttered. Huh? You barked back. Really? You're telling me to stop? You don't know me. He mumbled loud enough for you to hear. And stop treating me like you're my mom. You crossed your legs and took on a more hostile facial expression. Well, for one, I know you use physical contact to let out your frustrations and energy. If you were still touching me, I would have the bruises to show it. Shrugging, you added, so clearly, you're not frustrated. He growled. Bakugou hated when you talked down to him like that. We have been married for 16 years. I know when you're bored. He blinked rapidly, trying to come up with a sentence. You're retired. You have all the control over your life. No, I don't, he snapped. And there it was. The crack. Now, he would tell you everything. Being a hero was what gave me purpose. The one thing I truly controlled. It frustrated me, yes, but it fulfilled me. And those Germans took it away from me. You blinked. So yes, he was bored. Got it. Honestly, you were wondering what it was. You were just going on a whim. Thank God you were right. I've been on my feet since high school. And now they expect me to sit idly by while my friends... fucking Deku! Tears began to leave his eyes. It's for your own good. He sniffled. Besides, you don't have to stay bored. What do you mean? You smirked. Bakugou, do you really think I haven't been seeing this coming a mile away? He sighed and watched you stand up. I just didn't think it would be so soon. I'll be right back. With a smile, you stood up and walked upstairs into your office. Meanwhile, your husband just sat there, dumbfounded. You soon returned with a few newspapers. I know, use the internet to find jobs, but in this back-ass Ward's town, they still do it the old-fashioned way. You slapped the local papers on the table before him. There, a few things had been marked. The fuck's this? Jobs. He blinked. Are you kidding me? If I was, I'd be laughing right now. He looked back at the circles. You're bored. Then do something. He just looked dejected and was in sheer disbelief. Isn't the point of retirement to do nothing? You shrugged. The money you made as a hero and me still doing architect stuff will pay for this place for the rest of our lives, and we can even live comfortable. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as it requires you to hit something. He looked back at the job offers. Butcher, lumberjack, abattoir worker? At the last one he looked quite confused. It's a slaughterhouse employee. There's a slaughterhouse here? You shrugged. Few miles down the road, probably 20 to 30 minutes away.
Okay.
He paused, deeply in thought. So he was actually considering it.
Yeah, I'll try lumberjack. I don't think I can look a cow into its eyes while I gut it.
You crossed your arms and nodded. Good.
When should I call?
You tapped the job offer on the table. Right there, idiot. That's what you get for only reading headlines. He smiled.
Thanks. Love you.
3 days later, Bakugou found himself in the lumberyard. He had woken up extra early and put on some decent clothes, understanding that if he showed up in a suit, he'd be laughed at. At 7 a.m. he arrived at the wood processing plant, just 40 minutes away from the lodge. He was greeted personally by the owner of the logging company, a jolly butterbean-looking man, bald, lightly overweight, but it was obvious that under all that chub were thick muscles. With a heavy southern accent, he quickly introduced himself and said, "That there yard, everyone calls me Bossman." Because he was Bossman. Just Bossman.
Sure.
Bakugou felt strangely uncomfortable.
When I told my son about ya joining, we was losing his mind.
How come?
He likes hero fangs, and who am I to deny him his pleasures?
Bossman was showing Bakugou around the lumberyard.
Before you can start actually felling some trees, you gotta work yourself up from chokerman. Can't give you any special treating, or your co-worker's gonna riot.
That made sense. Besides, Bakugou didn't come here for special treatment.
That there,
Bossman pointed at a guy jumping out of a truck.
That there's Owie, gonna be a supervisor.
Bossman slapped Bakugou on the back.
He's gonna put you in the uniform too. Just...
Bossman paused, his tone shifting.
A testing period is 4 months. Got it, boy?
But almost immediately turned back to its happy tone.
But I'm sure this hero fang was much harder than this, so don't worry, son.
Bakugou blushed.
Hey, what's wrong? Getting cold feet? I know his city folk ain't so tough.
The blonde smiled and then laughed.
No. No, it's just... A friend once told me that the greatest honor for him would be to be called son by a middle-aged southern father.
Bossman snored.
Yeah, city folk are weird.
But Bakugou simply shrugged. He had to admit, it did feel nice being called son by him.
But he sounds to be a wise. Anyways, now get working.
Bakugou quickly joined Owie. This was where the day turned ever so slightly sour. The man was in his late 40s, had worked here for 20 years and knew exactly what kind of worker he wanted, and knew that Bakugou may not have the guts for that. At least he was willing to be taught otherwise. He was also told that on a demanding day he could work up to 12 hours. That actually didn't sound so bad. He remembered that sometimes he stayed up days on end on patrols. So maybe, overall, this was a great deal. Bakugou returned to you late in the evening, grinning from ear to ear, sweaty and with a few bruises. You stared at him wide-eyed. "Seems like you enjoyed it," was the only thing you could say before,
"This was awesome!"
he shouted. Immediately he jumped you, wrapping his arms around you tightly.
"I love you."
You smiled. He smelled like pines. Without saying another word, he took your hand. And suddenly, it felt like you were 20 again, when he swooped you off your feet. "Aren't you tired?" you huffed as he dragged you up the stairs into the bathroom.
"Don't care,"
he shouted. Once inside, he threw you against the wall, pushing himself against you. You groaned as air was pressed out of you. Your eyes widened as his lips passionately pressed onto yours. He moaned. Of course, you expected a reaction like this. Bakugou had always been this way. The more taxing his job was, the more time he spent away from you, the more wild he became. It was like an endless second wind. He quickly tore off your clothes. You had barely any time to react. When he was throwing off his own, you had a chance to speak. What is this? He looked up. Huh? How come you always have so much energy?
I don't know.
Once he was naked, he turned on the hot water. After the shower had ended, you followed him into the bedroom. We gently pushed you towards the bed. His lips pressed on yours as his tongue aggressively wiggled inside your mouth. You groaned in pleasure as he pushed you down onto the mattress. This was what you had been missing. This was the man you had married. The bedroom fun lasted for 3 hours. Exhausted, he rolled off of you. He was breathing heavily. You, on the other hand, could barely even muster that.
That was amazing,
he said. Your body felt like jelly, but somehow you managed to roll on your side. Gently, he moved a finger up his chest. How do you do that? He asked again. He shook his head.
I genuinely don't know. Maybe it's a mutation.
Dinner was ready hours ago. It's probably cold by now. He scoffed.
Not hungry?
You blinked. But I made...
We eat it tomorrow, okay?
He gently kissed your forehead. How do you feel?
Completely and utterly exhausted. All my limbs and muscles are screaming at me.
You blinked. That sounded like an absolute nightmare. But this was Bakugou Katsuki, the man you married, the man you loved.
Can't wait for tomorrow. You'll see, I work myself up into a feller in a heartbeat.
I love you, you said softly. Tomorrow, before you go, you said, I want you to tell me everything. But your legs quivered. I really need a break. You've wrapped your arms around your husband. Your head gently nestled into his chest as his hand caressed your backside. I love you, you said once more.
And I love you too.